Welcome to readtheticker.com. In the Richard Wyckoff world of looking at a chart, two terminologies, springs and upthrusts, have been touted as a method of making a living. Now, it is our opinion that you can't. For the simple reason, a spring and upthrust is not enough evidence that a change of behaviour is about to happen on the chart. It is true that a spring is a sign of demand and an upthrust is a sign of supply. But to confirm that demand is to swamp supply after a spring, the chart must show more demand activity than a spring on its own. Look for a sign of strength, spread tightening, volume falling off, show that supply is not present. To confirm that supply is the swamp demand after an upthrust, the chart must show more supply activity than an upthrust on its own. You want to see the background, a sign of weakness, volume showing demand is not present. And when more supply comes to the market, the spread does widen. You have to find more Wyckoff assets of chart recognition that demand or supply is present that is likely to change the behaviour of the chart. Let's have a look at a couple of examples. Here we have the forward weekly chart. Now we have the blue bars are when the close is higher, the red bars is when the close is lower, and the horizontal lines are automatic support and resistance, and the indicator you see is what I call stepping band to show that the price action is stepping up. Now, for example, here we have an upthrust. Price breaks into new ground and falls down into old ground, but there's not enough evidence that supply is in the market, so this is not a tradable upthrust. Okay. Here we have another upthrust, but we do have a bit of weakness in here. And we do, as you can see here, the thrust between there and there, and there and there is still pretty good. You know, that's a pretty good reach of price action. The thrust is not really shortened. So take a trade there is still pretty high risk, so that's not a tradable upthrust. So we get a third upthrust, and here we've had two instances of a little bit of weakness. And the high not taken out here, see that? And we may decide, because the price action has not really advanced in the last high, that this might be a tradable option. And that could be considered. In the volume area down here, we can see the volume really dropped off a bit there, didn't really carry through. The volume was a bit high here, but it didn't carry through, so that would be that could be probably an upthrust for consideration. Like I said, these ones wouldn't. On the spring side, here we have some strength coming into the market. We get a spring here and another one here, but over 2 weeks. Those are both tradable options because we have strength in the background, and when the price action comes down, as you can see, the volume is a lot weaker than the volume on the way up, and it finds support here, and it's breaking out into new ground from the support and resistance line here. So, like I said, if we need more evidence than just the spring and upthrust on its own, and the price charges up here, we have strength here, we get another spring here, so we can have, this is a weekly chart of course, so we can trade that one. And as you see here, we've got the thrust, what I refer to the thrust, is the price action moving higher or lower into new ground, and you to measure the distance, for example, the distance between here and there and there. So you can see it's a pretty good thrust. And at the moment this is another spring where the price breaks into new ground and rebounds. The volume was light here, so there was no real pressure on the downside. Bit of volume increase there on the next bar, but a bit of a worry. But shouldn't be stopped out, so that was a tradable spring. So you need more evidence than a spring on its own if you take advantage of either a spring or an upthrust. That's a little Over here we have get a bit more evidence. I would call this a sign of weakness. So here we have a bit of weakness. Widening of the spread. Price falls very easily twice down into new ground. So that is a sign of weakness. And then we get some activity going up here, which is not in great volume. So that is a sign of weakness on the way down and a very lackluster rally that doesn't make it into new ground. And as you see, we get an upthrust here. That is a very tradable upthrust, and that probably be called an upthrust after distribution. So that's the tradable upthrust. The pointed difference between this upthrust here and these upthrusts over here, there's more evidence of supply in the background of the chart to show that folks are selling. And this upthrust here is a dead giveaway. So there's two upthrusts here which are tradable. This one here's a maybe. And once again, you do get all these little springs here, right? But unfortunately, it broke support. You may have had a go here because it goes down hard. But quite frankly, I would have been concerned about the widening of the spread and the supply coming in. So that just shows that there's just a little bit too much supply about, and trading that spring would have been higher risk. Once again, we've got a lot of supply coming in here, and taking that spring would be high risk. Now, secondary to that, you might consider this one here. You wouldn't call it a sign of strength, but you've had more strength come in the market. It goes down to a test, does a minor spring, so that's a tradable spring there, and it takes off, and maybe it's a tradable one here. But you know in the background, this has just been pushing up to resistance to sell back into. These springs, the springs I've got marked here, do not have the same strength and characteristic as the springs that you see on this side of the chart. Okay. Now, the forward chart is a very Wyckoff friendly chart because it does forecast provide multiple readings of supply and demand of what's going to happen. For example, here on the right hand side here, we've had a very widening of the spread. Supply supplies come in. It's gone down too fast. I pushed it back up again. Another upthrust. This is a tradable upthrust because you've had a sign of weakness here, and widening of the spread. Lots of volume come in, goes up, and there's very little strength of any volume to go into new ground. We have break previous resistance. That's a tradable one, and then supply just came back in here. Have to see what happens over here, but once again, we see a spring there, and the people call that a sign of strength. Yeah, I probably need a bit more evidence to get excited about that. Probably at base a bit more, because it just needs a bit more evidence. So, like the main point I want to make is, if you see a quote, you can trade springs and upthrusts on their own as a trigger measure. That is not a true argument. If you understand Richard Wyckoff and through the education of Bob Evans and his tapes and everything, you need more evidence in a chart to support the idea that a spring is going to show a change of behaviour and see price advance, or an upthrust is going to show a change of behaviour, see price sell off. Thanks for watching.